going out to my car this morning, and it was actually only 47 degrees, but there was kind of a warm breeze, and I had a jacket on and headed to the gym. Now, I leave the gym right around about 4:30, 4:45 or so in the morning, generally pretty cold, but it did feel pretty warm, and it's 65 degrees or so right now in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's February 3rd, and we are live in Fort Collins talking to you about things that have happening, city council work session review today. And so stay tuned. We've got a lot of exciting things that we're going to talk about, including the Fort Collins Loveland Airport, some information about that, the intergovernmental agreement that's going on and what they're trying to accomplish. But I had to look up what the all-time high was on February 3rd, and it was 70 degrees in Fort Collins. So 65 is getting pretty close. And then on Wednesday, when I agreed with my wife to take down our Christmas lights, because she's like, our house is the only house in the neighborhood with Christmas lights. I was like, no way. I was like, since December 25th. Now, there was probably a week or two there right after Christmas that I could have taken them down. But then for all intents and purposes, the last month, there's been snow and I actually, and maybe I'm a little bit sensitive to it, because I did actually have a math teacher in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that was actually paralyzed from taking down Christmas lights. And whether it be an excuse or not, for me, I'd rather just take the time, wait, and take down Christmas lights when it's pretty warm and not wet and safe. So this Wednesday, when it's supposed to be 60 degrees, I'm planning on taking down the Christmas lights. But it was awesome this morning. Went on a walk after I was done with the gym, listening to the city council work session along the Spring Creek Trail, and just was, really pretty awesome weather. But lots of things to get into today, including, we just submitted our business tax return, or not tax. We didn't file, but we got our accountant to start on our business tax returns just in the last week or so. Hopefully get those back, and then can continue on with our personal tax returns all in time. I don't do a lot of extensions, but we're a small brokerage. There's only 5 agents, and then one full-time employee, and then an independent contractor who's a virtual assistant of ours. So it's not very intensive. Our personal tax returns, generally all of our K-1s and different types of returns get back to us in time for that April 15th filing date. But Colorado, actually, there were some pretty interesting numbers in here. The 2024 Tabor refunds are going to be that, essentially you're going to receive it as a discount if you owe anything, or an actual deposit into your account if you overpaid or don't owe anything to the state. But our state tax went from 4.45% to 4.25%, our state income tax. In 2024, they collected over $1.4 billion more than what is allowed to. Our Tabor law since 1992 requires the state to refund over-collected funds. And then there are actually an additional $289 million that they over-collected and under-refunded in previous years. So you should be receiving, let's see here, on the low end, incomes up to $53,000 for $177 for single filers, or $354 for joint filers. $166,000 to $223,000, you'll get $323 if you're a single filer, or $646 if you're a joint filer, and $302,000 and above, $565 for a single filer, and $1,130 if you are filing jointly. So those will get out to you once you file your taxes. From there, let me just quiet this. Let's see here. Windsor Town Board approves to purchase 300 acres of open space. But actually what was interesting was this is going to be located, and I'm going to share my screen because I thought it was relatively interesting information. Let's see here, share screen. We'll go right here. Okay. Give me a little corner. What I thought was interesting, so they're going to be buying this 300 acres for $20.9 million, which 12.5 million is for the land and 8.4 million for water rights associated with the property. Water rights are just crazy. It's amazing that water rights are for 300 acres, are nearing the purchase price of the land. So land 12.5 million, water rights $8.4 million. But the land is located between Colorado Boulevard and North 15th, just north of the new middle school and police department. So right here is where the new police department is going. So there's going to be a police department, new middle school that's going to be, gosh, what was it called? It's going to be called Ridgeline Middle School. And then there's going to be 300 acres of open space. So, and what I also thought was really interesting, I don't think I give Windsor enough credit for how many miles of trails they have in town. They have 40 miles of trails in town per this article, which I thought was pretty impressive. Now, I would have to imagine that's like paved trails miles because, Fort Collins has currently only 46 miles, and it's a much, much, much bigger community than Windsor. So Windsor per capita definitely has more trail miles than Fort Collins. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take that I don't give Windsor enough credit for. But, a lot of the growth in Windsor right now is you've got, if you're looking at here, you got Severance that's just growing like crazy over here. And then Windsor, and you've got Hoedown Hill and Rain Dance. So Windsor, I've talked about it once before. There is a video that I released, and that is, Windsor predictions, one of the fastest growing smaller towns in Colorado. And on the low end, over the next 15 to 20 years, they're expecting to go from population from 40,000 to 60,000, or on the high end from 40,000 to 80,000 over the next 15 to 20 years. So Windsor is rocking and rolling, and a lot of things going on. But I thought it would be interesting that they've got their police station, middle school, and then 300 acres of open area out here. I'd have to imagine that the open area includes this water right here. Maybe that's some of the water rights. But regardless, exciting things going on in Windsor. Speaking of which, I talked about it a little bit last week with Connor. Montava Development is, they did receive their 2-year extension. But one of the things that I want to talk about that this article actually mentions is their first phase, Phase D, was approved. They were issued an approval letter for Montava's 16 development phase. One of them is Phase D. And on this one, it's a 290-acre site that is going to have 280 single-family attached and detached housing units, and another tract designated for 150 to 210 future multi-dwelling units. So Montava, if we are seeing this accurately, should see shovels in the dirt, earth moving, but it's a 25-year build-out, 4,000 home development. And since I've got the map on me, I might as well just show you guys where. Oh, interesting. I've got a little favorited place. Here is going to be Montava. Basically like all up in this area. so it's a big development going on. And this development, Phase D, is going to be between Richards Lakes Roads to the north and Mountain Vista. So this first phase is going to be basically right in here. Okay. So excited to see that all getting going. All right. Well, let's keep rocking and rolling. Fort Collins Urban Renewal Authority moves to buy a motel with chronic criminal issues. And honestly, there is a motel on the right side of the road as you're driving north. So I guess it's just on the east side of 287. That's a yellow motel. And I right when I read this article, I was like, that's got to be it. Because I'm like, that just place doesn't look great. But it is not. It is a different, actually, I'll put this in the 15, 13. All right. Here. It's actually gonna be on this side. I don't know why they're. Oh, 15, 13. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So the motel that they're looking at buying is right here. And there's also actually a 55 and older mobile home, modular home, mobile home, senior living area back here that they definitely want, that there's been major issues with this motel. And then if you guys are interested, this is where the homeless shelter is proposed to be built. So it is an area, you know, one of the things that we'll talk about here shortly is the 11 of the city council's priorities, and that one of them is protecting at-risk vulnerable population sets. And one of them is seniors and affordable low-income individuals that are living in affordable home outlets. But all of that being said, you know, there's 3 mobile home parks that are abutting this property. And then you've got this motel right here. Here are some statistics for them, or you know, just recently, this motel and City of Fort Collins is buying it for $2.15 million. And 10 of the motel rooms have been blocked due to methamphetamine contamination. So it was voted on unanimously from the Urban Renewal Authority to buy this. So we'll see, you know, they've got a due diligence period. But then from there, it looks like if they can't save the building, it's going to be demolished. And so it's exciting because, you know, so the Urban Renewal Authority is looking at buying this motel here, converting it into something, you know, hopefully decent for the city. And then you also have got right here across the way, it's not right, it's probably right here, I'd have to imagine, as far as, oh no, it's right here. That's the Albertsons. So this building right here is the Albertsons building that the Urban Renewal Authority, I believe, either has purchased, is purchasing, but they're looking at building this into, they're kind of deciding what they're going to turn it into, a community center. So Urban Renewal Authority will own these 2 buildings pretty close. So they're really trying to up-level this North College Avenue. And I think there's, you know, it's just some kind of blighted areas or issue areas that are being taken seriously. So just kind of thought that was relatively interesting. Now, one thing that has happened in Fort Collins is we have recently, well, in Colorado, there's a hands-free law for driving that's taken place. I'm not amazing at it. I know that there's the law. I do use Bluetooth or Siri every now and again. I don't have a hands-free device. Oh, Siri just picked me up. I don't have a hands-free device, but understand that if I get pulled over and cited, it's a $75 ticket. From there, City of Fort Collins, as of I think November/December, they're speeding red lights. There's 6 red lights that have been, red light cameras are now converted into red light cameras and speeding cameras. And then they also have 2 Avis automobile or automated vehicle information system, something along those lines, that will track your speeding if you're going 11 miles per hour or over and send you a ticket. Because one of the biggest concerns or one of the biggest issues is speeding. And I'm going to share this with you guys because I thought this was really pretty interesting statistics, right? So Fort Collins and Lamar County are not, you know, they actually are their fatalities increased in 2024, and they are trying to focus on decreasing these. So while our numbers aren't necessarily big per capita, they're relatively large, and it's something that we need to address head on. So let me share my screen. All right. This is my weekly live script that I go through on a weekly basis. I don't know if I show this too much. Usually I show slides or other screens, but here's a look at traffic deaths compared to 2023. But really what I wanted to look at is Weld and Larimer counties with highest traffic fatalities. Now I'm having to imagine that they're saying this as far as per capita, because obviously like we're on the lower side. but we had a 19% decrease from the year prior, which is great. Weld County had a 20% decrease, but still 35 and 67 people passed away from traffic fatalities in 2024. So we have a population of 350,000 roughly in Larimer County and right around 350,000 in Weld as well. So Fort Collins, Greeley, among deadliest Colorado cities for traffic fatalities. Greeley, a 27% increase to 14, and Fort Collins, an 8% increase to 14 in 2024 versus 2023. It's definitely something that hopefully can be addressed, and through policy, technology, different things, those can be, looked at and addressed. Now, one thing I thought that was interesting is, let's do this. One thing that I thought was interesting is the months with the deadliest months on the Colorado highways. And all I noticed it's the warm months, right? Because people are going to be speeding. It's where they feel the most comfortable to be speeding. And there is a direct correlation to speeding and fatalities. So in those colder months when maybe there's snow on the roads or you have to go a little bit slower, yeah, you might get into an accident. Maybe there's more accidents, but you're just not going at a speed that kills. So just be safe out there. I mean, that's, I guess, the story. Just be safe out there. All right, now let's keep rocking and rolling. We'll get to City Council here shortly, City Council work session here shortly. I thought it was kind of interesting. We have talked, somebody's asked me just recently about how the co-working spaces in Fort Collins, and there was an article that came out in the Coloradoan that talked about this kind of co-working district. And there are 3, 4, there are just under a dozen co-working spaces with nearly, or roughly, I should say, where'd it go? 480 remote workers able to work in these spaces. So, it's not a ton, but it's not nothing, that's for sure. And then there's also other places as well. So this is just in this 2-block area. There's 480 spaces. And actually my coworker and I, Connor, we co-listed a commercial building that ended up turning into a co-working space called Cahoots. And it seems like it's doing pretty well. But there is one that's being built that's slated to come online. Let's see here. Slated to come online by this summer. And it's going to be a 20,000 square foot facility near 301 Remington Street. So I just thought it was really interesting. We just had that question, how is the co-working space in Fort Collins? And then this article came out. And so there are plenty of options to get away from the office, to go in, find a place to work. Now, from my understanding, they're relatively expensive for sure. So maybe the competition now between these spaces will make it at a rate that makes sense. So, or at least makes sense to those that are using them. City Council, they went over 4 different items on their work session over 3 hours, a civic assembly update on the Hughes land, as well as airport governance committee, a kind of a midterm review of our city council priorities. We have 11 city council priorities. And then they did have an update on charter language. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I started listening to it and I was like, no, I'm not listening to this. This is great. It's going to clear up a lot of language, run on sentences, make it more in line with other state statutes. And it's all good things, but it's very much in the weeds and very much details that I was like, I'm sure it's great, but I'm not going to watch this. So I will share my screen and we will get rocking and rolling on our city council work session review. Here we go. Okay, so our city council, our civic assembly, I'm going to scoot it down a little bit because So we agreed to do a civic assembly, essentially bringing in random citizens that hopefully represent the demographics across Fort Collins from, race, incomes, age, lots of different things that will get together, be very educated, and then recommend a recommendation ultimately to City Council that they can adopt. But how this 165-acre piece of land in Fort Collins that once housed Hugh Stadium will be used. So here it again, right here, invitations mailed. Invitations mailed is the invitations to, I think it's like 8,000 to 12,000 residents in, let's see here, it tells you right here, I think. Come on. I thought it told me. Excuse me. There we go. Yeah. 8,000 to 12,000 randomly selected residential addresses. So that's what this is. Invitations mailed. So if you're interested in this civic assembly, make sure you're checking your mailbox. I am 100% guilty. I check my mailbox like twice a month. It is nothing but bills. And I should say that I've changed the way that I pay bills to once a month. And I just sit down in the last week of the month, and it's just a day that I pay bills, and it helps me mentally because I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm pouring money out. And now that actually I've moved it to one day, it feels much better. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not spending as much as I thought. But that being said, all I'm saying is check your mailboxes because you only have until a March 5th date to respond. And from there, our first civic assembly meeting is April 12th through the 13th. And then ultimately, they're going to be delivering final recommendations in June, so to City Council. So exciting things that are happening at the City of Fort Collins Civic Assembly. So that hopefully by the end of this year, we should know what are we doing with the Hugh Stadium land? Is there going to be a bike park there? There's currently a bike feasibility study that's going on. Is it going to be a raptor program that's there? There's a lot of different conversations and uses, and maybe it's 3 or 4 different uses. It's a big plot of land. We'll skip to slide 52 for our airport governance. Now, City of Fort Collins has, in tandem with Loveland, own the Fort Collins Loveland Airport. And it's been an airport that's like heavily used, actually. There's a new terminal that was built there with 2 gates as of last year. Customs, I believe, is there, if I remember right, because there's a lot of international. There's a few companies, I think like Nutrien, that can now come in directly to Loveland. They had a widening of the runway to accommodate for bigger planes. And so all that being said, there's been a lot of work done at the Fort Collins Loveland Airport. And actually, one of the goals that I'm going to have is to get the new director for the Fort Collins Loveland Airport on, his name is John Kinney, airport director, onto the podcast, because I think it'd be great. I think maybe selfishly, I'm sad that it doesn't have that commercial flight that it's had. On my 21st birthday, we took Allegiant to Las Vegas, and it was fun because all my uncles, a few cousins, were from Fort Collins. We just went to the airport and took a flight there to Las Vegas, came back. Over time, I've taken it to, I believe, Scottsdale, and then Hollywood Burbank as of recently with a Velo that was there for like 6 months. And it was amazing because it was like 12 minutes from my door to the parking lot and 0.0 security. Oh, I mean, there's security, 0.0 wait for security, really. But they want to get, and John Kinney, the airport director, said, this is an untapped gem of a resource. And I agree. I am not looking for, and I don't think our community provides the density to allow for, everyday flights. And he actually explicitly said, this airport will never have a red-eye flight. You probably should never say never. I don't think he said never, but essentially because of how we're going to operate. It's just never going to really have a red-eye flight, but really it will have at some point a commercial flight that is consistent. But there's things that have to happen between now and then. The city of Fort Collins, a lot of people are kind of like, well, why are we a part of this? Like Loveland basically operates it. It's in Loveland. Let's just give it to Loveland. But I think there's some desire to keep control probably over it. So let's go through a few of the things that are going on. Here's kind of a breakdown of all the intergovernmental agreements since 1963 that we've owned it. Recently, here's the biggest one. We've each appointed 2 city council members. I believe ours is Julia Pignataro and Mayor Jenny Arndt, who are on that governance committee that are helping steer how we're going to operate the Loveland Fort Collins Airport. That's kind of a nothing burger here. Again, they met 4 times. The governance committee met 4 times last year. July, August, and then I want to move down a little bit to this. So essentially what they're recommending is an airport authority. So this would be a new intergovernmental agreement that would give the power, most of the power, to the airport authority. Because as you can see right now, status quo, there's 5 entities that have to make decisions. City Council, Airport Commission, the director of the airport, and then this one, there's a purchasing body, city managers, City Council, and so they're trying to allow for this airport to self-operate or to operate with a little bit more autonomy than having to deal with these 2 different cities that are pretty involved with it. Now, some not so exciting things are if you have used like Groom Shuttle or the United, checking in at Fort Collins Loveland and taking that bus to DIA, there's going to be some things that are changing. They are going to have parking fees here soon. They're going to have shuttle fees, and their goal is to become a self-sustaining business that doesn't rely on debt or communities to subsidize this resource. So we also had on one of our podcasts, Don Overcash, who's pretty familiar with the Loveland Airport. So if you haven't watched that episode, we go in not super deep, but pretty deep about the airport. So the long and short of it is they're wanting to have an airport authority, but this is going to take time. Basically till 2027. So 2 years they're going to take to get to this airport authority, where if it's agreed upon and everything's structured properly and they get approval from the Federal Aviation Authority for FAA, can't remember what, I think it's Federal Aviation Authority, approves it, they can then do all of these things. But it sounds like the FAA pretty much and the TSA approve these desires pretty quickly. So that is an update on the Fort Collins Loveland Airport. Unfortunately, there was a few questions that were asked about commercial airlines and noise and neighborhoods and nuisances and rules. And the long and short of it is, it sounds like John Kinney, I believe, John Kinney is excited to take over as the director of the airport. He wants it to be operational. He wants it to be neighborhood and area friendly, because ultimately, if the entire city or cities are not happy with it, they can shut it down. So it's nice to play in the sandbox nicely with each other. All right. And the last thing that we'll talk about, which I think is really pretty interesting, kind of an update of what everything City Council is doing. So City Council, there's 7 City Council members, including Mayor Jenny Arndt, representing 6 districts. And then you have our city staff, City Manager Kelly DiMartino, and who operates basically 2,500 employees as the City of Fort Collins organization. And there's a lot going on and a lot of, not egos, I wouldn't say egos per se, but I would say a lot of different desires that they come to the table and they vote on these priorities. Historically, there's been a lot more priorities, most of them task-oriented type priorities, but they wanted to get kind of to a more high-level priority and then tasks underneath that. So they came up with 11 priorities versus 33 priorities of a couple of years ago. And here they all are. I'm going to, look at them just kind of high level, but they're broken into neighborhood and community, economic, environmental, transportation, mobility, and high performing government. Because ultimately one of the biggest tasks of the government is 365 government, police, roads, Poudre Fire Authority, they're a part of that as well, but safety and kind of utilities, lots of different things that 365 government, they want to be at a world-class level for that. But we'll go through each of these priorities and some things that Fort Collins City Council is doing and working on. And these are some upcoming sessions that are specifically relating to some of those priorities. But priority 1, operationalize city resources to build and preserve affordable housing. One of the things they want to do is to achieve decisions in 90 days or less. It's huge because I would say one of the biggest, and there's also Prop 123 at the state of Colorado that provides some affordable housing funds to municipalities that can, so long as they have specific guidelines in place, or have access to these funds. But one of the biggest costs is like time, holding costs, going through this review process and having different iterations of it, it just adds all these money. So trying to achieve 90 days. But here are some of the things that they've done so far. 2025 funding, housing and fee credit programs, basic development review for affordable projects is in place. Land use code was updated. Land use code phase 2 is being updated. So there's things that we are working on actively to try to provide some affordable housing options for people, because I think that's a really, I think Kelly Olson actually talks about it, and we're excited. We have Kelly Olson coming up on the podcast here. We record this week, but the episode will come out third week of March. So, but I've got some really interesting questions, because even just in this work session, philosophically, I wouldn't say like we're like worlds apart, but we are definitely different. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, I'm excited about that conversation. All right, priority 2, improve human and social health for vulnerable populations. This was what I was talking about earlier. That's one of our priorities. There is a fund for immigration legal fund, eviction legal fund, and mobile home park programs. So there's the mobile home zone that was voted in. I think there's quite a few mobile homes that are now, those land are zoned for only mobile homes. So they can't be like a land bank for an investor. The eviction legal fund was a huge success that came out of ARPA and is now part of our budget. So that's big for those experiencing, rent hardships. Healthy Homes enhanced program funding, engagement staff for equity inclusion office funded. Prospect energy wells. I thought this was kind of an interesting one. Prospect energy wells are shut in and awaiting permanent plugging and reclamation. So I believe by the end of February, we should have a purchase agreement for the contaminated property. And then from there, how long it takes for us to abate it and plug it, plug it and abate it, I'm not sure, but we should have a purchase agreement in place by the end of this month for Prospect Energy. If you're not aware of what Prospect Energy is, I believe there are 6 operational wells in Larimer County that the Larimer County and City of Fort Collins, I think in tandem agreed, let's take some state funds that are allowing for this and buy this piece of land and shut down the wells. There's a lot of issues, and they have a lot of, I would say, what are they called? Citations, for lack of a better word, from the state. They're not making anything better. And a big goal of ours is to improve health. Human and social health and air quality is a big deal for us. So we will that will be rocking and rolling sooner than later. I'm just going to check to see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions. Feel free. This is live. That's the beautiful thing. Ask questions if you would like. If you're watching this on rerun, ask questions in the comments below. Generally get back to everybody. I do leave some of I wouldn't call them outlandish, but just I pretty much try to stick to a positivity only. I'm not against answering tough questions, but negative ones I kind of skim over. I'm like, I'm not not a fighter in that regard. Fighter in plenty other regards. Okay. Priority 3, pursue an integrated intentional approach to economic health. I thought this one was kind of funny, honestly. $25,000 grant to support semiconductor and advanced industry ecosystems. I mean, $25,000 is a lot of money, but in that world, it's like nothing. So I thought it's cool. Maybe it's a bullet point. I will say the one thing I noticed on the priorities is it did feel like a lot of patting on the back, which, seemingly they are, hitting a lot of good things. So there wasn't, maybe there were some tough questions, but generally speaking, they were kind of all just, hitting themselves on the back saying we're rocking and rolling. So, but it sounds like they're doing some good things. I just thought this one was funny. $25,000 for support semiconductors. I'm like, $250,000 maybe would be substantive for that industry, but $25,000, I just felt like it's a drop in the bucket for that industry. My opinion. Let's see here. Priority 4, advancing 15-minute city. We actually have 2 priorities that are all about 15-minute cities, right? And one of the things that they're trying to do is they're working on our land use code, small business technical assistance program funded. They're big. Okay, so that's great. Permitting improvements funded, implementation underway. Continued steps towards acquiring the former Albertsons property and possible expansion of URA work. The reason that's on here is because they're considering turning it into a community center, among other things, library, other opportunities. But this 15-minute commute, walk, bike, or ride, something like that, electric scooters and stuff, within 15 minutes can have all your amenities like groceries and entertainment and education and workability. That's the focus. That's what a 15-minute city is. Initiation conversations with PSD. And then complete first draft of place-based assessment. Okay. Accelerate zero waste. This is a lot of like food scrap, construction waste. The landfill is going to be going out, not going out of business. It's going to be reaching its useful life either I think this year or early next year. But we started our trash contract with Republic, and they said there's been some positive and negative feedback from that. I will say the negative feedback is you have this opt-out fee, and they ask for it to be paid quarterly. So $33, so it's $11 per month for an opt-out fee. And I just wrote my check because our HOA is with Rams Waste. So our HOA is covering our trash, but I still have to pay Republic Waste an opt-out fee. Now, granted, Republic Waste, I'm sure, they had all these agreements and things in place and calculations that essentially said, we're going to give the majority of City of Fort Collins a discount, but we need a certain amount of people to agree to use us for us, this discount and all this to make sense. And if not, they're going to pay an opt-out fee, which ultimately City of Fort Collins clearly agreed to. And I'd say that's probably the biggest gripe that a lot of people are like, what? But it's part of it. So I think that we're still just kind of in the initial phases of this trash contract, and we'll see if there's any changes and things of that nature as moving forward. Reduce climate air pollution through best practices. Budget funding to advance the virtual power plant. So that's kind of exciting. The virtual power plant, I still don't know a ton about, but essentially what they're wanting to do is tie in to everyone's homes and try to basically pull levers. It seems very big brother-ish, but I think there's ways that you have control, and I'm not against it. I kind of am like, hey, Amazon, I want a new mountain bike, and then hopefully after I get off here, I'll start seeing a whole bunch of Amazon mountain bikes. So I feel like we're all part of the matrix. I don't know. So seeing our house connected to a virtual power plant to try to reduce energy costs. Hey, during the summers, if you're not home or if you see that you're not using it, providing access to the city to lower different things to pull from solar from your house and the grid. And anyways, I thought that was pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. Budget funding towards electrifying municipal buildings, $11 million grant to build out charging infrastructures. budget funding for small engine replacement, 7 replacement electric utility carts in operation in parks through 2050 funding. 2050 funding, I believe they're discussing on this one, the 2050 tax. Priority 7, protect community water systems. Definitely a lot of people when they move here talk about water in northern Colorado. It's a dry, arid climate. We've got the Poudre River running through us, the Halligan Reservoir to grow and expand that. I can't remember how much of a million. I think it's like $300 million project. Glade Reservoir, Hollow Creek Reservoir. I would say City of Fort Collins, Larimer County, Loveland, a lot of these different areas in Colorado are very forward thinking and want to be water resilient. And City of Fort Collins wants to make sure that our watersheds are protected and that we're not just depleting these resources that need to be here now and into the many, many years future. Again, advancing a 15-minute, priority 8, advancing 15-minute city by accelerating our shift to active modes. Well-attended asphalt art and open streets. Asphalt art, I don't know how that has anything to do with active modes, but open streets events do. Excited for open streets this year. Hosted National Safe Routes to School, very cool. Awarded $1.7 million from the federal Safe Streets, kind of an audit focused on active modes, a Harmony road study, and just trying to make our roads safer. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then our strategic trails plan, again, I think we have 46 paved miles currently with another 75 projected to come online in the next 20, 30 years type deal. So, but those you'll see more and more of those. I was just walking on Spring Creek this morning, and like the trail is like, I have to imagine like 8 feet wide. It's huge, at least 6 feet wide, but regardless, part of one of our priorities. Develop a use plan for the Hughes property. We just talked about that. Civic assembly, make government more accessible, approachable, and fun. This one's kind of like, I feel like this one was maybe they were like on the 11th hour of their retreat and they're like, let's just make it fun, and kind of threw something out there and it stuck. But regardless, they want to make it more accessible, which is great. I will say, running a podcast, and we've had a lot of people from the City of Fort Collins on, very accessible, quick to respond to questions, open. I asked the planning manager last week about rentals versus owner occupied for ADUs. And within 6 hours, I had a response back. So I will definitely say more accessible, approachable. We have a council member. It did take me about probably 4 to 5 emails over 2 or 3 years to get him onto the podcast, but he's agreed. He said he rewards persistence, which is great. So excited to have him on there. The fun part, I'm like, I don't know. Like I said, I guess government can be fun, but I don't know. Not with my dollars. Like, be serious. My opinion. So maybe you can have fun while doing it, whatever. So, modernize the city charter is the final priority. And that's what they had the last point on. And it was overall, a lot of good things that are going on there. So we are through what has happened in Fort Collins. City Council review. Now, what are some things that you can do this upcoming week and in weeks that might be fun? So let's jump into that. Fort Collins Book Fest, which I thought was pretty cool. It goes actually from February 7th to February 17th, and there's almost activities or events on a daily basis, from poetry readings to beer, food, hearing from authors. And there is a website that you can go. I think it's fortcollinsbookfest.org. Let me see, focobookfest.org. And there's a ton of things to do there. So for the next 2 weeks, starting February 7th, you've got, or at least 10 days, you've got a lot of activities to do there if you would like. State of the City, where I believe it's Mayor Jenny Arndt and City Manager Kelly DiMartino sit down for about an hour. It is kind of a pat on the back type of deal, but there's some opportunity for questions and hard questions about what's going on. So I definitely advised to watch that. That's February 24th, 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Center. So you can attend in person if you'd like. All right. I'm going to be honest here. This is a very popular thing in Fort Collins that I've never done. And it is the First Friday Art Walks. And we've got one coming up in February 7th, 4 to 9 p.m. at Edge Optics at 121 LaPorte Avenue. Apparently, it's a lot of fun. I've never done it. So maybe I should one day just get out there and do it. But there's drinks, appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, music, art. It's just a fun evening. First Friday of every month, they do this. During the winters, it can get kind of cold, but they've got indoor activity or indoor spaces. Businesses get a part of this. So something fun to explore. There is a class going on February 8th, 12 to 1:30 p.m., the best fruits and berries for Colorado's Front Range. And this is being put on at the Fort Collins Nursery. It's $18, no food and drinks, but you're welcome to bring them. And if you're looking at what should I plant, what berries and fruits should I plant in Northern Colorado's climate, well, you've got an expert that will be putting on that class. And finally, our winter bike to work day, or anywhere that you're going that day, is on February 14th. There's two different time periods, 7 to 9:30, where there's going to be a bunch of tents set up, and then 3:30 to 5:30. I will tell you, last year I completely forgot that it was it was summer bike to work day, and it was a blast, man. There was just food stations. I think I got some like gardening gloves. I mean, these tents that are put on, it's a lot of fun. Go up and down the trails, and so but it is kind of a crapshoot. Let's see here. We are at February 3rd. Our 10-day forecast. Looks like at least our 10-day forecast is at 26 degrees, but it's trending upwards. So we'll see how accurate that is moving forward. But we don't have much else to go over today. We don't have much else to go over today, so I appreciate you guys watching. Now, if you aren't a subscriber to the channel and if you've enjoyed the content, I ask you to subscribe. And if you've enjoyed this live, please give it a thumbs up. It would mean a lot. It's all vanity, but hey, it is a lot of work doing these things, and I've really enjoyed it. And I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day. That's probably a lot of work too, to watch this 47-minute episode. So thank you again. Have a great day. Take care.